the question is, why do you need to learn how to play the piano by ear? Now, let me first start by saying that this article is not intended to discourage you from sight reading. In fact, we teach the basics of sight reading even before exploring the techniques of playing by ear. Now, for those of you who don't know what sight reading is, it's the ability to read songs from sheet music. Now, although this is a wonderful skill to have, if one does not know the theory behind what they're playing, it'll create several disadvantages. Now, in my experience, sight readers rely heavily on sheet music. Now, imagine being at church or an event where you're playing a song and you have your eyes glued to the paper. How would this feel? Now, I'm not speaking from inexperience because I've been there. Don't forget, we do cover sight reading as well. But sight readers will be less likely to improvise. In other words, they'll be less likely to add their own style, their own chords, respond to what they hear, because their goal is essentially to play whatever is written on the sheet music accurately. But in playing by ear, you play what you feel. So if you have to repeat a song, and the sheet music doesn't necessarily tell you to repeat a song, you still do it because you do what you feel. If the singer, for example, changes the key, when you play by ear, you're able to follow because everything is relative. You know that a particular chord is now being played or needed, or a particular progression or series of chords. So you're able to improvise. Sight readers will also attempt to memorize entire songs instead of recognizing why chords are played and why they need to be played at certain parts in songs. So this is solely why I've had a passion to play piano for so many years, because there's no better feeling than being able to play what you feel. Now, don't misunderstand me in any way. These are the qualities of sight readers who don't understand the theories behind the music that they play. For one to be skilled in both sight reading, music theory, and ear training is a great advantage, so I definitely encourage you to pursue as much as you can. So what I'm trying to say is that if you're the type of person who's going to play in atmospheres like churches, or you're going to play in jazz bands, or maybe in rock bands, or you simply want to kind of sit down and play those simple songs that you hear on the radio, you want to back yourself up, you want to write songs and accompany your songs, then playing by ear is certainly for you. Now, there's some advantages to playing by ear, and I want to tell you how they help you. Number one, you're able to instantly recognize chords that are played in songs without being at your piano. So what this allows you to do is, say you're listening to a song. If you've been trained properly in playing by ear, you actually know what's going on before you get to the piano. Now, it's not that you know a C major chord, for example, is going to a G major chord. Instead, when you have relative pitch, this is one of the things that you learn, because there's perfect pitch and there's relative pitch. And playing by ear, you rely heavily on relative pitch. Relative pitch tells you that there's a chord that starts on the first tone of a scale, and it goes to a chord that is on the fifth tone of a scale. You know, because you probably heard a major scale is tones 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And on each one of those tones lie certain types of chords. So it is possible to be in your car riding down the street and kind of know what a song is doing by numbers, because you can clearly hear a chord or a major chord that's on the first tone of the scale, perhaps going to a chord that's on the fourth tone of the scale. Now, you don't have to know that it's C major going to F major, because when you get to your piano, you'll figure that one out. But at this stage, it's the ability to recognize chords relatively. So you just hear things, and you know. For example, that's a 2-5-1 progression. And if you know anything about playing by ear, 2-5-1 progressions commonly end songs. So, again, an advantage number one is being able to instantly recognize chords and kind of know what's going on in your head even before you get to the piano. Now, how does this help you? Well, you're able to learn songs a lot faster and easier because you understand why chords are played at certain points in songs. You understand where to put a 2-5-1, you know. And again, if you've learned anything from what I've been talking about, a 2-5-1 is none other than a second tone of a major scale, going to a fifth tone of a major scale, coming back home to the first tone of the major scale. And you'll learn what major scales are, you'll learn how to form major scales, and you'll learn the various chords that are corresponding with every tone of the major scale. So all of that is covered. The second advantage of playing by ear is that you're not required to necessarily memorize chord progressions. Now, I'll pause right now just to tell you that a chord progression is a pattern of chords simply played one after the other, or a series of chords. And you're not required to memorize these chord progressions or these chord patterns because you understand and you're inclined to know what chord to play next. In other words, it's not a sense of, I have 14 chords to memorize by tomorrow. No, you have a grander scheme of things, and you sort of know that this particular chord that I'm playing here has a strong tendency to lead to this next chord. And furthermore, you see these patterns over and over again. One of my most overused statements is pretty much that chords are recycled and chord patterns are recycled. In other words, you see the same things going over and over again. For example, I can play one series of chords in one particular song and end up playing the same series of chords in a totally different song. Now, if you sight read, you probably wouldn't have made that correlation, especially if you were playing each of the songs in a different key. But because you play by ear, you know that relatively those are the same chords, maybe slowed down a little bit or sped up a little bit, but nonetheless the same chords from song A are in song B, and that's what you learn. Now, how does this help you? Well, it allows you to improvise and add your own flavor to the song. This is especially advantageous when playing in a church, as you know, you can never predict how long a song will be, or if a singer might resolve or take the song up to another key. In a band especially, too, because it's helpful if the leader instructs everyone to repeat a part of the song or change the key or do something where you might need to improvise. This is how using your ear helps you. Now, the last advantage that I'll cover on this page is that playing by ear will allow you to use the same methods to play virtually any song you want. Now, I'm talking about most songs. Now, don't quote me. Now, if you're referring to Mozart or Bach or something like that, you might be better off reading it on paper. But for most popular songs, they follow these same kinds of patterns. And how does this ultimately help you? Well, it saves you a lot of time and money because you don't have to go out and buy sheet music to every song. Because now you have the ability to hear and recognize some of these melodies, and you can recognize the notes, you can recognize the chords, you can recognize the progressions. So now you're saving a lot of time, you're saving a lot of money, and you have a lot more self-satisfaction because now you're helping to create a song. And there's nothing better than a song you never thought you could play. You sit down to the piano, you work with it for some time, and now you're able to play it. So those are the joys of playing by ear, and I encourage you to read the rest of this page.